live in a world of ecological and biodiversity crisis, especially along the Rio Grande. What do you think is important to know right now?
I think building empathy and building ethics is really needed right now. I feel like we're all here because we have something that we're interested in that we have to offer to our community, right, to the world. And for me, the focus is always about like bringing that humanity and the ethics into the discussion.
And your piece, Biota, what was your thought process?
So I was invited by 516 Arts to be part of this exhibit called Species in Peril along the Rio Grande. So I had to think, what species was I going to choose? And for me, my work, I always look for the invisible, less visible creatures, or the less visible things going on, the invisible forces in nature. And I learned about the microbial species and how they're only visible to us now because of a technology called DNA sequencing. What I did is I collected a water sample from the river in Taos that feeds into the Rio Grande, and I sent that water sample to the lab that does this DNA sequencing. And I get back a list of all the species, there were 700 in this water sample, that live in that water. And then that data is what I visualize in this piece called Biota.
And so what were you trying to convey with that kind of idea?
Well, biodiversity. So I wanted to communicate the diversity of species that exists in water. I wanted people to feel empathy for this object that I created that visualizes the data, and feel to learn about this invisible species that exists, and how important they are to the ecosystem.
What was your biggest challenge in doing this?
The biggest challenge was actually learning about DNA sequencing. Like, I didn't even know where to start when I started the project. And then finding a lab or who could do it. Had to speak to many microbiologists and try to find out where to get the data. That was the most challenging and the most rewarding part.
How do you promote change other than building awareness?
Every time I do an art piece, I always do some kind of youth workshop to go with it. So over the years, I developed an online platform called the STEM Arts Curriculum Tool. This platform has the artists featured, and then what the work's about, the research behind it, the science and technology behind it, and activities, STEAM activities that the teacher can do with students.
Which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, right?
Yeah, so this platform is kind of my way of bringing all that research and knowledge about the science and art, right, to the teachers and to the kids. And then recently I started collaborating with the Taos Land Trust, and the Taos Land Trust takes land and protects it. And they have watershed areas that are being restored. There's the river, the Rio Fernando, where I took my sample from. There is an acequia that's being restored. The BioSTEAM Lab is my idea to collaborate with them and use the STEM Arts model that I've developed and curate and find an artist that can do a site-specific installation in the land that addresses some of the topics. So this topic for our first artist is biodiversity loss and pollinators. It's all about future generations. So not only because we work with youth, but because we won't have a future unless we take care of these issues.
What do you think people can do to be more involved in real action?
First of all, I think pressuring our businesses and our governments for the big changes is really important, because we can do a lot of little things, but we also need the larger corporations, for example, putting out the plastic. to do something about it. So I think continuing to put pressure to change regulations is a big one. And then I'm excited about this particular project that the Taos Land Trust is doing with this park, because it's an example of how any community can take a piece of land and turn it into a pollinator garden to try to look at how now we have 14 species of bats. And when I had walked on that land 2 years ago, there was nothing but gophers. So if everyone did their own patch of land and park and education and educating youth on how to live in harmony with nature and protect nature and the importance of that, and that worldview that nature isn't separate from us, we are part of nature. Those ways of thinking, those ways of knowing, those ways of walking in the world, that's what I think is the most important thing to reconnect with as adults, and to teach the young kids that probably already know it, but it needs to be reinforced.
What do you think is the first step that we need to take?
I don't believe in policing, you need to do this and you need to do this and this is what needs to be done. I think everyone has their own gift and their own place in this world and their own talents, So if you're a lawyer, there's something you can do as a lawyer. If you're a teacher, you teach. If you're a land keeper, you plant. So I think the answer is find where you are and what you have to offer, and then give that. And in terms of what needs to be done, we need to inform people. So if you know, tell someone else what's going on so that people are informed, and protect in any way, protect nature. And that can be, like I say, in so many ways, whether it's building a park or building a pollinator garden in your backyard, or figuring out a way to get around the plastic. There's so many things that it's more about just pick something that you resonate with and do it, I would say, is the main thing.
Personally, for you, why is this work so important?
I have always been really kind of fixated on nature and technology, and the fact that it's so out of balance. Technology can be both the problem and the solution, and finding a way to use technology as a solution is what I focus on. The science of our times, of this century, are very exciting to me, the science and technology of this century, because of that. So my interest is in taking that knowledge and applying it to protecting nature. So whether through the technology or just through the worldview.